Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 2C TV with the first live update of the day from the Middle East. Of course, the conflict between the state of Israel and the Islamists continued. Last night we reported on this channel about the detailed reports and the coverage of the Hezbollah's headquarters that was brought down by the IDF. And following that, of course, almost the whole of the leadership of Hezbollah was taken out, including the main leader, Hassan Nasrallah. Now, we have a follow-up, ladies and gentlemen, because over the last few hours, we are getting reports from inside Tehran, the capital of Iran, that the Islamic occupiers of Iran are having a bit of a meltdown. These are the IRGC's final countdown, final days. We're also going to be today covering a number of other stories on this channel. Throughout the day, we're going to be talking about the reaction to Hezbollah's downfall and Hassan Nasrallah's assassination in Lebanon, in Syria, in Israel, in Iran. There's a lot of reactions, celebrations, and everything else. We'll talk about that later. We're also going to be talking about Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, later on, because his favourite donor, Lord Ali, has some dodgy links with a certain dictatorial regime. But first, we are going to be talking about what's been going on over the last few hours. Of course, this is the latest chart that we have. Essentially, almost every single person has now been taken out, including Hassan Nasrallah himself. When we reported this last night, we were one of the first few outlets that reported the death of Hassan Nasrallah. Initially, of course, we got the confirmation from our IDF sources. A lot of people came and said, this is clickbait, this is not true, this is fake news, it hasn't happened. Well, how do you feel about that now? Because, of course, we always make sure that we try to verify everything that we are getting from our sources. And we happen to be a little bit quicker than the mainstream media because it's the mainstream media. There's so many issues with that. So, over the last few hours, we've had, of course, the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, who had an emergency meeting late last night for hours and hours with his close advisors and his council. This morning, they have decided to move the supreme leader from his palace. Ali Khamenei has now been relocated to a secure location with tight security. Essentially, they've taken him to one of the bunkers that they have. Most of the time, these secured bunkers in Iran, close to the capital, Tehran, are in the north of the city, towards essentially the northern parts of the country, before you get to the mountains, basically. Well, in case you don't know, Tehran is basically inside, in the middle of many mountains, essentially. So if you want to get out of the city, you have to move towards the mountains. But inside that, they have a number of tunnels and of course bunkers for these guys. They also have their obviously secondary mansions and penthouses and everything else, and secret luxury houses across those mountains as well, so they can easily go to a nice place. They don't have to hide like Saddam Hussein did, for example, or even Adolf. There was also almost a close incident earlier this morning, because there was a cargo plane that was going towards Lebanon from Tehran, and this was actually part of the Fars Air Resh in terms of the airline. But the IDF, Israel, essentially hacked into the control room in Lebanon, in Beirut, and warned the Iranian plane to turn around, to not land, or they will be shut down. So, of course, the Iranian plane was forced to turn around and go back to Tehran. This was in fear that the IRGC will be sending more weapons last minute to the Hezbollah, well, the remaining members of Hezbollah. Essentially, we already know that the Beirut airport was already hijacked by members of Hezbollah over the last few years. This was exposed a couple of months ago. Even though a lot of people already knew about this in Lebanon, they just couldn't do anything about it, I guess. So the Israelis were fearful that, well, if a cargo plane is coming from Iran, it might definitely be last minute, it might definitely be weapons or some resources. And at the same time, in terms of replacement, it's interesting that Hashem Safieddine has actually somehow survived the attack. He's a cousin of Hassan Nasrallah, and he oversees the Hezbollah's political affairs and sits on the group's Jihad Council. He is most likely going to be the interim leader. Obviously, it's now a very small organization in terms of the remaining members of Hezbollah. They don't even have a headquarters or any sort of infrastructure at this point. It's just a branding. Apologies, a bit of a sneeze is coming. Because he's now the most senior person, and a lot of people thought that he died last night, but apparently, well, they are saying that he's alive. So he might be the current leader. Now, obviously, that means that he's going to be taken out and get eliminated very soon. It's just a matter of timing, because I think the focus from Israel is now going to be going towards Iran. The main focus is going to be on the IRGC in Tehran. Now, of course, the remaining members of the Islamic resistance groups from Syria and Lebanon and Iraq are now hitting Israel. In case the mainstream media has not reported this, Tel Aviv, they're all obviously being told to go into their safe zones and bunkers that they have a lot of civilians because of this. Yes, there was a ballistic missile that was sent from the Lebanese territory that was intercepted by the Israeli Defense Forces. That has been dealt with, but more rockets are being shot towards Israel over the last few hours. Sirens can still be heard in and around Tel Aviv. Of course, as I said, this is just putting more pressure on the Iranian regime to actually do some sort of retaliation. This is not a real retaliation. This is just basically the desperate members and minions of Hezbollah just basically pretending that they are doing something about it. But if Iran doesn't act quickly, it will be an embarrassment to in the region for the Iranian regime, and it shows the weakness. Now, if they do attack, of course, that means that they will be wiped out by Israel. So, and at the same time, obviously, Netanyahu, who went to New York earlier this week to the United Nations, he made a very robust speech and essentially called the United Nations pointless, useless, incompetent, and anti-Semitic. And even though obviously all the anti-Semitic countries and representatives left the chamber when he was making a speech, millions of people around the world still watched the speech. And it obviously put a lot of pressure on the Western globalists who are not supporting Israel for obvious reasons to just keep their mouth shut, because the Iranian regime will not be able to wipe out Israel. I'm saying it right now. It's not going to be possible. But at the same time, if the Western side, if the priority for them is to fund the Iranian regime and the state of Qatar and then put sanctions on Israel, it's not going to end well for our liberal globalist leaders either. Let's get some reaction. First, super chat. Thank you very much, Smoke and Bones. And Jason says, Israel defeated Islam again. Next is Khomeini. Well, Khomeini died in the 1980s. Khomeini was the first supreme leader of Iran. I think you mean Khamenei. They do have similar names, to be fair. It's quite difficult to tell. And they both had massive beards. But yes, Khomeini died a long time ago. Tusi, please listen to my song. It's for the people. Where? What am I doing? Okay, thank you. I don't know. How do I... Okay. Your fans and you will like it. Please give it a go. Is it relevant to the topic or what's going on here? This is my only promotion, to see. I'm independent. I can't really promote you, and I don't know what the song is or how I can listen to it. It's very difficult, but thank you. Shira says, I'm afraid that Israel would want some quiet and the hostages back, so there might be a deal. Well, then there could be a temporary deal with Yahya Sinwar directly, obviously through the third parties. But Yahya Sinwar knows that he shouldn't, from his perspective, he shouldn't agree to any deal, because the only thing that he has as a leverage is the hostages. He knows, he can see what's been going on in Lebanon and the rest of Gaza. obviously, that means that if he gives up the hostages, obviously he should. Hostages need to go back home. But he knows he's an evil person. He knows that if he basically gives them up, then the IDF are not going to give up. They're not going to shake hands with Yahya Sinwar and say, let's be friends again. They're going to go wipe him out. So unless the deal includes a safe route for Yahya Sinwar to escape and go somewhere else, then yes, he might do that. Because he only cares about his own safety and security. He doesn't really care about the cause. it's an idiot. We got David saying, Alan Snackbar is... Alan Snackbar. What's going on with the BBC? Well, the BBC have not had a good couple of days, have they? A black Islam flag turns to a white flag of surrender. But this is basically a good analogy for what's going on with Yahya Sinwar in Gaza, basically. Nancy from Canada says, Maya, how will this loss to the extremists affect the UK? I'm coming concerned you guys over there. Prayers and love. So the only fear that a lot of people have in the West is the Iranian regime. They do have sleeper cells in the UK, in the US, in Canada. And the fear is when they are going down, when the time comes and Ali Khamenei and his minions go down, then they will activate the sleeper cells essentially to be activated to wake up and to cause trouble. It's going to be disruptive. It's going to be damaging, but it's not going to be strong enough to, for example, take over the UK or take over America or Canada, not by force. They don't have to because we've actually invited all of them as asylum seekers. So the illegal migrants are basically coming in. They don't need to actually take over by force in that sense. But there will be sleeper cells on behalf of IRGC that will be causing trouble, and there will be targets on the list, including myself, 2CTV, of course, and many others who have fatwa against them. We will be targeted, but that is just the reality of life. You know, you live in a world where you have enemies, and you have to fight for the truth, and you have to fight for freedom, and you shouldn't be afraid. A lot of people in the West who've been so privileged not to experience any sort of conflict, they are always very afraid of conflict. No, never start a conflict, never start a war. But if you have to defend yourself, don't be afraid. You have to defend yourself. A lot of people would rather make concessions and compromises in order to prevent the idea of defending yourselves. And a lot of people say, oh no, but if we do that to that country, it's going to be World War III. What am I going to do? I need to go to work. Just defend yourself. World is not what it seems to be in the West. Everything has been a bubble over the last few decades in the West. The rest of the world are experiencing wars and conflicts and challenges every single day. But the biggest thing that we have here is the inflation and, of course, corrupt politicians. People forget that the natural state of life and world is, in fact, conflict. It's not a good thing. You have to thrive and aspire to make it peaceful. But the reality is, peace and stability is not the natural order when it comes to humanity. You know, we've been working hard to achieve that over the last few centuries. But yeah, of course, the sleeper cells will be causing trouble. Myself and others will be targeted. But there's no way, even if that happens, that they're going to be winning. This is just a desperate attempt by the IRGC to just simply cause trouble while they go down so that they could inspire other Islamist minions to basically become lone wolves or start smaller terrorist organizations. That's basically it. Because they simply want somebody to carry on their legacy. That's been going on for a long time. Didn't really help that at some point CIA was funding some of them, but that was a while ago. Another super chat, Ariel from Israel. If possible, please warn before you sound Israeli alarm. You have a lot of people watching from Israel. Yes, thank you. I will try. Yes. Kevin says, sorry about the sausage party we all had waiting for you. What sausage party? What did I miss now? And a super sticker from Martin. Thank you very much. What's going on in the live chat, guys? You're causing trouble again as usual. Sausage party. Kind of a sausage party with that Keir Starmer. Rosie Duffield has resigned as a Labour MP. Completely irrelevant to this story. It's just a bit of a breaking news. We do have some breaking news actually in relation to this topic. There's a massive, heavy security deployment currently happening in Baghdad, capital of Iraq. Protesters are surging towards the U.S. embassy. So the American embassy has been targeted. The Iraqi security and special forces have been sent around Baghdad's green zone today. The crowds of Hezbollah supporters are marching in anger over the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, attempting to storm bridges towards the US embassy. We in fact do have a couple of videos which we can actually show you from this breaking news that is happening as we speak. This is the the situation right now in Baghdad outside the US embassy. Let's just quickly show you what we have for you, because there's going to be, I think, more updates on this as well, and I want to make sure that we bring you guys all the latest developments on 2C TV first. Let's go to the first clip from Iraq. There we go.
الموت لأمريكا الموت لإسرائيل الموت لإسرائيل وين؟ كلا كلا أمريكا كلا كلا إسرائيل نعم نعم نصر الله.
And then we also have the second clip. This is again outside of the US embassy in Baghdad as the Hezbollah supporters are marching towards it. So yes, this is of course an ongoing situation in Iraq right now. Let's just double check the latest information on this, because of course the security forces have been encouraged, of course, by the international coalition to ensure the safety of the US embassy staff. But at the same time, there is no confirmation whether people are being kept safe or do they have to find safety for themselves. It's going to be completely a terrifying situation in Iraq right now for the American staff. Hopefully they can stay safe. Let's quickly get some more quick reaction from you guys as well. Yam says, cheers to you. Also get ready for your next vacation. Well, back to Israel. Next summer, holiday in Iran, when I'm allowed to go, because currently I'm banned, obviously. Why did Iran's ambassador have a basil brush pager? Yeah. I mean, it's a fascinating concept, because this is about the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon, who also had one of the pagers that went boom. And for normal people, we know why, because Hezbollah was literally the creation of Iran. It's not a separate organization that Iran decided to support. It's not like Hamas. Hamas was a separate organization, Sunni organization that Iran decided to support. Hezbollah was created by the Islamic Republic of Iran. So obviously the ambassador of Iran in Lebanon will have the pager. But on an internationally speaking, diplomatically speaking, on that level, nobody's answered that question. The United Nations has not even summoned the Iranian representatives in Washington, in New York City, to ask them why your ambassador had a Hezbollah pager. It's a fascinating situation. Double standards. Absolutely double standards. No Jews, no news. Enoch says, you see the Lebanese celebrating on X. I posted in Discord. Yeah, so that, as we said earlier today, beginning of the live stream, as I said, we have a couple of things to cover for you guys today. The first update is the IRGC's final countdown. Then we are going to be talking about the celebrations in Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Israel, and elsewhere, after, of course, the downfall of Hezbollah. And then later on tonight, we're also going to be talking about Keir Starmer's latest scandal with Lord Ali, his donor who bought his wife underwear. I don't know what's going on there. We're going to talk about all that later after this one. He says, Maya, do you really believe Yahya Sinwar is still alive? He's not been heard from for over a week. Yes, because the IDF and Mossad would have done their job and told us. because it's in their interest to tell us immediately. And they would have immediately gone inside all the tunnels in Rafah to get the hostages back. They know it's still booby-trapped. They know it's still not easy to operate without taking out Yahya Sinwar. He might have escaped. That's the other theory. He might have escaped to Egypt somewhere because, again, it's not too far. They have all these extra tunnels, secret tunnels between Gaza and Egypt. So that could also be a theory. But if he was dead, we would have known. Nasrallah is not waving his finger now, is he? No, he can't. He's a little bit dead. The song is classic. It's on politics in the UK. Miss for something. Thank you. And Headrock says, only the Persians can save Iran. Israel can't do it for you and mustn't do it for you. It must come from within, or it will only make matters worse. So if you see it from a perspective of the Iranians versus the Islamic occupiers, that fight obviously has to be done between the Iranians and the Islamic occupiers. But it has nothing to do with the fight between Israel and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Israel will not be liberating the Iranian people. Israel will be destroying this and should be destroying, has to the Islamic Republic of Iran in self-defense for the sake of the state of Israel. Nothing to do with liberating the Iranian people, because the Iranian people have their own job to do. It's their own uprising. It shouldn't be the job of the Americans or the Brits or anybody else to go and liberate them. But of course, in self-defense, Israel or any country should defend themselves. If an enemy wanted to wipe you out, you wipe them out. And obviously, coincidentally, indirectly, it will be helping the Iranian people, but not for that reason. You're not destroying the IRGC necessarily to liberate the Iranians. That's just a happy coincidence. There is another super chat. Sorry, there we go. Ivan says, do you think this will be the end for the Iranian regime? I mean, these are the final days. Again, when we say days, we say metaphorically, so it could be months, could be a couple of years. But this is the beginning of the end, and it started about a year ago, 2 years ago, actually. The beginning of the end for the Iranian regime started about 2 years ago when the uprising started, and it's still ongoing on smaller scales in small towns and villages and everywhere else. Everybody is essentially waiting to see what's happening to the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Because on the one hand, if he just dies, because he's apparently had cancer for about 5 million years, the infighting at the top of the regime will be the downfall, because his son, Mojtaba Khamenei, wants power. The other side's a link to the former president, want power. But now it seems to be accelerating. The end of the IRGC seems to be accelerating because of Israel. So, because they've been backing Hezbollah and Hamas like idiots. And they haven't actually taken any actions, real action. They sent a couple of drones to Israel, which all failed miserably. But yes, they will not survive. There's no happy ending for the Iranian regime. Super sticker from Lynn as well. Thank you very much. As we said, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about these the reactions in Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Israel to the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah. There's a lot of celebrations going around. We'll come back and cover that. And afterwards, we're also going to be talking about the socialist Prime Minister Keir Starmer in Britain, who's also going down. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you would like to watch our latest documentary series, The Rise of Globalism, on 2C TV Plus, the best thing you can do is go and subscribe to 2C TV Plus. Go on 2ctvplus.tv and sign up, select the subscription, and you can also back our independent new media revolution and get access to all the premium shows, documentaries, and the chat forum if you want to talk to me and like-minded people directly. I'm Maya 2C, and we are the media.